So I just saw Ready Player One last night, and dude, I think that this film is this decade's kind of like ultimate film. It really is, because in an era of like a bunch of reboots, sequels, and remakeables, that's actually my idea for one of my videos here. In this day and age, there's a lot of rehashings of old things. There's spin-offs, spoofs, like, you know, continuations, alternate universes, and for the most part, I would actually argue they're pretty good, and in some cases actually enhance whatever came before them, you know? So I really don't have a problem. This is an era of nostalgia, you know? Like, shit from the 80s and the 90s, even the 70s, like, it's all come, like, full circle, and it's all become, it's like EDM music, you know, just incorporating, like, everything, every musical genre, whether it works or not. It just really is very this decade, and this movie is sort of like the ultimate representation of that. Believe it or not, it's actually a very, very original story. I mean, if I could actually compare its plot to anything of any semblance of a similarity, it would be like Tron, but this movie bears no resemblance to Tron whatsoever. There are, like, I knew going in that there were going to be a lot of, you know, pop culture references, a lot of video game, movie references. I had no fucking idea that I was in for this. There were more references to things than I can count, and I'm not exaggerating. And you would think that that would be too much. You would think that the studio bit off more than they could chew, you know? It's like the entire time I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh shit, Ninja Turtles, oh, Battletoads, oh dude, fuck, like, you know, the holy hand grenade of Antioch. Just like, tip of the iceberg, just to name a few. I mean, like, anything you can imagine was in this movie. And it is technically a science fiction, but I felt like it was a fantasy. I felt like I was following this fantasy epic involving all of these characters that I had known from different video games and movies, but they were their own characters in the movie, and they were having like a war in the video game world. It was just so cool. And everything that was referential about it totally worked. It had that old, like, Spielberg sense of magic. There were a couple parts, like a couple, like, little, tiny little bits of dialogue that were a little cheesy. And, like, you know, for example, there's, like, a scene where, you know, this dude's hooked up to, like, all this wiring and shit because he was just plugged into the thing, and he kisses a girl, and his body sort of, like, hangs from the wires, like a cartoon when a cartoon kisses somebody and then their feet come off the ground. It was a little, like, okay, you know, but like, shit like that was very, very few and far between in this movie, and the movie itself was so fucking entertaining that, like, I just, you know, because there is, like, this movie is like gamers standing up to big corporations and actually defeating big corporations on a digital plane. There's an actual war zone with all these referenced characters where there is actually something very legitimate in real time at stake. And like, my mind was just blown. Like, I was just so absorbed in this movie. I'm not normally about spending the extra money for 3D, but they only had 3D available on the HDX big crazy ass fucking screen that's projected by unicorns. And I would totally recommend going to see this movie with that, because it's worth it. I mean, it's worth it. As far as the characters go, you know, I had heard some criticism that they were a little bit flat. The romance aspect of it is a little bit fantastical, but I didn't mind. I was so absorbed in the story. To me, it was like, it's young love, you know? Like, I was just, when you're younger, like, you can fall for somebody really quick, really easy, and in a state of ignorance. And I'm not saying that that's, you know, what the case was with the characters in these movies, but I'm like, I was so absorbed in the story. I didn't even mind some of the exposition that was in the beginning. And, I mean, like, I'm going to try to bar as many specifics as I can, but I have to tell you, like, a little bit about my favorite part of the movie. They go looking for one of the keys in the fucking Shining universe. Like, Jack Nicholson, Stanley Kubrick, Shining. And it was like they took actual stock footage from The Shining and had these digital characters coming into it. It was hysterical. It was so funny. It was so great. Like, I laughed the entire time. I was grinning ear to ear. This movie was like 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It did not feel like it. Honestly, I think this is the most entertaining movie that Spielberg has come out with in a really long time, possibly since Jurassic Park. I might have to think about that, but I'm pretty sure that no Spielberg film, like no, sense of like old school, like fun Spielberg film has really stood out to me this much since the original Jurassic Park. But yeah, guys, if you haven't seen it, Ready Player One, super fantastic movie. As far as this era is concerned, it's sort of like a bookend. It's like you got Scott Pilgrim in 2010, and then in 2018 you got Ready Player One. Scott Pilgrim was more of a comedy, so it can't be compared side by side, but it is a video game movie. And like I said, these two like are bookends of the decade, of this era, and just super fantastic movie, guys. Definitely go out and see it. That's all I have to say.